Well, life has gotten far too expensive under Donald Trump and the Republican controlled Congress. Donald Trump promised to lower the high cost of living on day one. But what we've seen is that costs haven't gone down, of course, in America. Costs have gone up. Democrats have been focused on doing a variety of different things to push back aggressively against the policies that Republicans have jammed down our throats, which is making life more expensive. For instance, we're pushing back against the Trump tariffs, which have increased costs on everyday Americans by thousands of dollars per year in terms of increased groceries and goods and other household items. At the same period of time, Democrats are focused on ending Donald Trump's reckless war of choice in Iran, which has skyrocketed gas prices all across the country while actually putting Iran in a stronger position than they were in prior to the war starting.
I want to get specific. If you, in fact, win the House, if you're the majority party in the House, what you might be able to do to address prices. And you talked about some ideas yesterday, including repealing what the president calls his one big, beautiful bill. Is that the answer here? Is there more that Democrats have in mind?
Well, we want to make sure that health care is affordable to every single American. And there are several steps that we need to take, including repealing the Affordable Care Act tax, making sure that the Affordable Care Act tax credits actually are extended, and repealing, I should say, the Medicaid cuts in the one big ugly bill, which have created a situation where the health care of more than 14 million Americans is at risk.
How do you do that? Do you need to see the Senate turn Democratic as well to actually repeal what's been already put in place?
Well, here's the thing. We saw a couple of weeks ago the Congress be able to move a bipartisan bill forward on housing affordability that is designed to alleviate some of the cost pressures that exist from the housing market. And we got that bill into law over the objection of Donald Trump. So what is clear is that even in a context where Republicans have complete control of government, we've been able to move some things forward. Certainly, if we have the House and the House plus the Senate, we'll be in a stronger position to drive the affordability agenda forward.
You mentioned the president's war with Iran. We've already seen the House and the Senate pass war powers legislation. Leader Jeffries, presuming you take the gavel, knowing that the president has blown right through these war powers acts, is there anything else that you can do to put collars on this effort?
Well, we're going to continue to aggressively push the effort to push back against this reckless war of choice. It's deeply unpopular with the American people, and we have to sustain the intensity. Donald Trump has unfortunately got us involved in this situation without any plan, any objective, any clear exit strategy, and now the American people are clearly paying the price. One of the things we have to take a look at is the amount of taxpayer dollars that are being spent to fund Donald Trump's reckless war machine and effort in the Middle East. It's clear to us that the American people would much rather their taxpayer dollars being spent to make their life more affordable. That's why we're committed to lowering the cost of groceries, lowering the cost of gas, lowering the cost of housing, and making sure that healthcare is affordable for every single American.
How do you lower the cost of gas without ending the war, though? We're at $4.11. Mr. Leader, it's been suggested even by the president we eliminate the federal gas tax. Is that something that you would support?
The most significant thing that could be done right now to lower the price of gas for everyday Americans who are suffocating at the pump is to end Donald Trump's reckless war of choice in the Middle East. And we're going to continue to relentlessly make the case that that needs to happen.
Where are you on the gas tax, then? Is that something that should be removed, at least temporarily?
Well, the gas tax, of course, is something that's in place to help fund our desperately needed infrastructure on highways and beyond. And so I think, it's something that The Republicans put it on the table. We'll have to evaluate it. But clearly, the most significant thing that could be done at this moment, as opposed to a temporary measure, is to end the war in Iran.
You know, we start talking about affordability, Mr. Leader, it creeps into all kinds of other stories, including now data centers, which have become a massive political issue. And we've been struck by how often it comes up when we talk to voters around the country. And of course, the state of New York, where you're right now sitting, has become an important guidepost here, at least for some who believe that there should be restrictions on data centers. As you well know, the governor has put a one-year moratorium on new data centers in the state. There are a lot of different ways to get to this. We spoke with Byron Donalds the other day, the Republican from Florida, who has a bill that wouldn't put on a moratorium, but would take data centers off the grid and would compel them to have their own water supply. How do you get to this in a way that makes voters happy?
Well, House Democrats have launched a commission on artificial intelligence and the innovation economy to thoughtfully engage with community-based organizations and groups, advocacy organizations, as well as industry stakeholders to try to evaluate the best possible path forward. But what is clear is that we have to put at the center of any effort making sure we're not doing anything to exacerbate the affordability crisis that everyday Americans are experiencing in every area of life. And that, of course, includes figuring out how to drive down utility costs and the cost of water, for instance, bills, as opposed to, increasing the strain on the system in ways that would actually drive up costs. And so I think this has been a state-by-state effort up until this point, with states landing in a variety of different places in terms of approach. I do think in the new Congress, we're going to have to come together and think about how we can address many of these issues nationally.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd love to ask you about some of the strokes behind this midterm cycle, which is what we're talking about with 99 days to go. And I can't walk into a room in Washington without hearing about the Save America Act. That's, of course, because of the amount of attention the president has paid to it. Leader Jeffries, were Republicans successful in salvaging this? Will it cost Democrats votes if it becomes law? Where are you on this? Have you talked to John Thune about it?
I haven't talked to John Thune, but he's made clear repeatedly that the so-called Save America Act, which is really all about voter suppression, is actually dead on arrival in the Senate, and there's nothing that Donald Trump can do about it. What's extraordinary to me is that he continues to actually waste time trying to rig the midterm election in a variety of different ways, as opposed to actually solving problems for everyday Americans, including the problems that he promised to address, like lowering the high cost of living on day one. And instead, of course, has done the opposite. He's made clear he thinks the affordability crisis is a hoax. Donald Trump has said very publicly he doesn't think about the personal financial situation of the American people. It's all very extraordinary. He's even said he loves the inflation. Now, our focus is going to be quite different because it's clear people are paying too much at the gas pump. People are paying too much for food. People can't afford their rent or their mortgage. And that shouldn't be the case in America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We want to work together.
Do you expect troops at polling places, Leader Jeffries? I'm sorry to interrupt, but are we going to see ICE agents at polling places if Save America does not go into effect?
Certainly think the American people would outright reject that. And we are going to put together the largest voter protection effort in the history of the country. We know we won't see troops at polling places because the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision in December, has ripped away Donald Trump's efforts to try to actually federalize the National Guard. He does not have the power to do that. In terms of ICE agents, we're continuing to push for a ban on ICE agents showing up at sensitive locations. That includes polling sites, but it also includes schools, it includes hospitals, and it certainly includes houses of worship. The American people want to see immigration enforcement in this country that's fair, just, and humane.
I'm wondering where you're looking here as we consider the money in this midterm election cycle, there's been some tough reporting about the DNC, and you probably saw the write-up in the New York Times with a frustrated Chair Ken Martin throwing his phone in one scene. It was described as dysfunction and despair. Leader Jeffries, when you talk to the DCCC, though, they've got a lot of candidates who are outraising their Republican rivals. But the fact is, on the party level, there's a great disparity. And I'm wondering if you care, if history is at your back to a point where the money will not make a difference.
Well, we certainly need to continue to raise the resources necessary to both reelect all of our incredible frontline incumbents who are in the battleground districts across the nation, while making sure that our candidates who are trying to flip red seats blue have the ability to communicate their message. We're all fighting for an affordable America. That's what unites us. That is a very powerful narrative that we'll have available to us as we communicate with voters over the next 100 or so days. Now, as you pointed out, from a DCCC standpoint, we just recently reported outraising Republicans, our House counterparts. We've been competitive with them all cycle. And of course, some of the outside groups that work in support of House Democratic candidates have posted record-breaking numbers.
Mm-hmm. If you take the House, does Ken Martin keep his job?
Well, listen, I'm focused right now, I think we all are, including Ken Martin, on November 3rd. And under the DNC partnership, what we have seen, Ken Martin's leadership, is Democrats winning races all across the country for the last 18 plus months. And the DNC has quietly been involved in a lot of those races where we have seen success. And so let's all, keep the main thing the main thing. I know that's what Ken Martin is doing, and he's focused on helping Democrats win elections all across America. And then all of us will figure out the path forward. But I think Ken Martin's term is 4 years, and there's no reason to believe at this point that he's going anywhere.
Okay, I appreciate your answering that. And I guess I'd wrap by asking you about some of those candidates who won in those races you point to were Democratic socialists. And there's been a big question about big tent. Leader Jeffries, you don't need me to tell you that. And I'm wondering if you see that as being part of the recipe to take the House in the midterm elections, or if a more moderate approach is the long-term success story for Democrats.
Our success is going to hinge on convincing the American people that as Democrats, we're fighting for an affordable America. We recognize the cost of living is way too high. Far too many people are working hard. They're playing by the rules, but they can't thrive. They can barely survive. People are drowning in this failed Trump economy. And we're committed to making a difference in all of the areas that matter. That's lowering grocery costs, lowering gas prices, lowering housing costs, and of course, making sure healthcare is affordable to every single American. Let me make sure as well to point out, look, I believe that the Democratic Party is at its strongest and America is at its strongest when we are a country focused on having a strong floor and no ceiling. Because in this country, you work very hard, right? You play by the rules. There should be no ceiling to the success that you can achieve for yourself, for your family, for your community. At the same period of time, America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, should always have a strong floor. And we know what that looks like. That's Social Security, that's Medicare, that's Medicaid, that's the Affordable Care Act, that's veterans benefits, that's nutritional assistance. By the way, every single one of these things brought to you by your friendly neighborhood Democratic Party, designed to ensure that there's a strong floor for working class Americans, for middle class Americans, and for everyday Americans. And I think that at its core is what the Democratic Party has been about, is about, and will continue to be about into the future.
And the DSA helps to reinforce that floor?
Well, I mean, the DSA can speak for themselves. I'm not a part of the DSA. I'm not a member of the DSA. Okay. The DSA can speak to their particular platform. We've got 215 plus Democrats in the House of Representatives. And what I can tell you is that what unites all of us and our candidates out throughout the country who are working hard is that we're committed to actually making life more affordable for the American people.